Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The Chancellor and, of course, my friend from Liège, Francois, the Deputy Chancellors, all the distinguished learned academics who are present here. It's a delight that I am able to attend the opening of this workshop. This project goes back some years. I remember meeting Francois in Liège in, I think it was 2014. I had to again leave and live in exile that year. And through some workshop, we met very late one evening in a beautiful cafe in Liège. And we had this discussion of more cooperation and coordination with our universities and Western universities, especially on matters to do with climate change. We were very fortunate. We won the 2018 elections, and we were again able to form government, and therefore we were able to start this program, start working on the program. I am told that you will start taking students in the next few months. Throughout the last few years, last 2-3 years, you have worked very hard in formulating a curriculum and launching this project, this course in the Maldives National University. The idea is that the campus is based in Addu in the south, where life can be far much more pleasant, where you would have beautiful beaches and far more less stressful ways of living than what you find here in Mali. So I hope that this work, the intake, will start soon. I am told that it will start in August. Now, this workshop the course is Climate Change, Diplomacy, Leadership, and the Resilience. Climate change diplomacy at its heart is the work of convincing other countries to stop destroying the planet and also pay up for the damage they've done already. On the face of it, this should be an easy task. After all, who would want to destroy the planet? Unfortunately, it's not that simple. Our way of life and our prosperity is linked to the destructive cycle of burning fossil fuels, which in turn heat up the planet and causes the climate to change. I think we have spent the best part of the past 50 years trying to convince people that burning fossil fuels is destroying the planet. We had to get the science sorted. We had to prove things without a shadow of doubt that greenhouse gases are causing climate change. We had to overcome skeptics and deniers. But I'm glad today that the World Bank president has resigned. One of the skeptics that I came across and was very difficult to have a conversation with. Some skeptics had reason to doubt the science. Others were part of a massive science-denying propaganda campaign that was bankrolled by fossil fuel companies to the tune of millions and millions of dollars. We also spend a lot of time arguing with complete idiots. But the most difficult and worrying was to come across people whom you thought were reasonable and intelligent, but still refuse to believe in the science. Some of the resistance to change comes from people who fear they will have to fundamentally change their way of life. This is understandable, given that many in the green movement are anti-technology and anti-progress. And when you start to unpick some of the narratives, they essentially say that people in developing countries should remain poor in order to solve the climate challenge. Well, this is not going to fly in any developing country. Ask any politician in a developing country, and they will tell you nobody votes for poverty. Nobody votes for austerity. We all want prosperity. To solve this problem of climate change, diplomacy needs to be about finding less harmful ways of living that nevertheless gives a prosperous life, and persuading everyone to adopt these practices. I think it's becoming increasingly clear that countries can pursue low carbon development strategies and still enjoy growth. There is a low carbon development strategy that would give you the same economic outcomes of GDP growth, but at the same time not damaging the planet. America and many in Western Europe have enjoyed a growing economy while emissions are now coming down. Technology has fortunately saved us in a sense, or at least it has the potential to save us. Renewable and clean energy is now more financially viable to fossil fuels almost everywhere on the earth. Road transport is undergoing a revolution in electrification, and aviation won't be far behind. Cities are embracing new forms of urban transport, from electric scooters to the old-fashioned bicycle, and nothing is run on fossil fuels anymore. There are increasingly better ways of farming with less fertilizers and pesticides, and with genetic traits that are more drought tolerant. Some of these methods are organic, some using genetically enhanced processes. There are better ways of building infrastructure. In the Maldives, we keep building water breakers with rock boulders. To build 1 meter of water breaker is $3,000, $4,000 a meter. To build 1 meter of revetment, is another $3,000 a meter in the Maldives. To protect your shoreline, 1 meter of it is costing us $7,000 a meter. You know that we have 2,000 islands, and therefore this is beyond our means. India alone has so much coastlines, and we can go on and on and on calculating how many miles and kilometers of coastlines we have. And no one has this money. But to grow 1 meter of reef is $20. To implant 1 meter of mangroves is $5. They both do the same thing. The breakwater and the embankment, the reef and the mangrove, they do the same thing. We must find ways of using nature as infrastructure. There are more biological engineering and software engineering methods that we can utilize to save our islands. Of course, the reef takes a lot of time to grow, but that is where we need you. That is where we need the science. We already understand that some of our reefs are more resilient than others, but we still do not know why accurately and clearly why these reefs, this coral, is more resilient than some other coral that bleaches very, very easily. So, building this program and this partnership primarily gives us the opportunity to bring the science to where it is required. There are better ways of building homes. Many residential buildings that encourage trees and plants to grow on it resemble less a tower block than a biosphere. At its heart, then, climate change diplomacy is finding technologies and methods that work and convince people to adapt them. We reclaim our islands. And now we want to champion this idea, suggesting that it is a climate change adaptation measure. It's not. These islands, or raised islands, are hardly going to save us. We do not know the furiosity of the wave to come. We do not know the height of the next swell. We do not know how much water is going to rain during the next flood. We do not know how dry it's going to be in the next drought. To think that more concrete, to think that more hard engineering is going to save us, I would argue, is the wrong line of thinking. We must be able to live with nature. We must be able to find solutions, ways of letting nature come into us. Can we live on water? Can we float? Is there a possibility of a floating city? Dredging is very often a very, very bad practice as an adaptation measure. It kills and destroys so much biodiversity. It destroys our reefs, and it is very difficult to build them back again. So, we are arguing that the diplomacy that they are going to learn here, is trying to convince other people, other countries, on new technology, on new ways of development, less harmful ways of living. Can we achieve these through the United Nations system? We are going to the 27th Conference of the Parties. UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, has had 27 sittings and no agreement. Sometimes I mention that the only thing that these conferences have done are conference babies. Negotiators have met each other 27 times. They have fallen in love. And the last time I went to Poland, I met climate change babies, negotiating babies. It's a beautiful thing, but we have not come to an agreement. It is of course, much has happened. We've had the Paris Agreement, and the last time we met in Egypt, countries agreed for some amount to talk about loss and damage, to mention loss and damage. So of course this is not succeeding. We need to find other ways of working out, other ways of extending diplomacy so that we may be able to find answers for the problems that we have. We need to find a fast track of achieving our goals. We need better diplomacy. So I am delighted that University of Liège has teamed up with Maldives National University and with University of Paris, with University of Paris, with University of Bratislava, 3 universities together, cooperating with ours, are going to build leadership. To my mind, climate diplomacy needs to improve 3 key areas. Firstly, as I've just mentioned, we need to bring more technology-focused, more solutions-oriented. Stop telling people not to do things. That just causes resistance. Instead, tell people to do more things. Rather than telling countries not to burn coal, let's instead ask them to build more solar farms and more wind farms. Alongside targets for emission reduction, let's have bigger targets for clean energy investments. Secondly, we need to embrace the market. The global transition to net zero is going to cost more money than there is in any government treasury. The investments needed to replace fossil fuels are enormous. Only the private sector has the money to make this change. And so, while government funds and government grants have their place, we won't solve the climate change without the market mechanism, without the private sector. So our solutions must make business sense. Thirdly, finance. Many developing countries like the Maldives have huge level of debts. This makes our cost of borrowing sky high. In turn, this makes building a solar park in the Maldives much more expensive than building one, for instance, in Spain. Diplomacy must help to resolve the debt problem, with richer countries helping to underwrite the investment risks in debt-laden developing countries. Only then we will unlock the private money that can transform our energy systems. So, I am very excited about this partnership, the University of Liège and other European universities. I think it will be great to have Maldives students and international students studying climate change in the Maldives. As I've said many times before, the Maldives is a frontline country. If you can't save the Maldives, you can't save the rest of the world. So let's get our climate diplomacy going and ensure we have a better future for all of us. Thank you.